and between 10th and 11th, SIR Studios. They didn't really talk to me much. He just asked if I knew any songs, and I said, yeah, I know a couple songs. So we did I Want to Be Sedated. We stopped, and he asked me a couple questions, and then we started to play again. And Joey walked in as we were playing, and I was like, wow, that's wild. I'm in the room with the Ramones right now. A couple days later, I got a phone call. My mom said, the guy from the Ramones called you. I go, I'm thinking to myself, I must have left something at the studio, because I did not think that they'd be calling me to come back. So I called Monty back, and he was like, learn a couple more songs and come back. And I was like, all right. So I got a phone call a couple days later, come back again. And now I'm like, wow, 3 times, So I learned a couple more songs. I go back. Now this time when I go back, there's a couple more people hanging out in the room. Arturo Vega was there, a couple of the roadies. So now they're starting to like show me to certain people. What do you think of this guy? Well, that was my impression. At this point now, I'm a deserter from the Marine Corps because I haven't gone back. So now I'm a deserter. So at that audition, I start to realize like, I might have a shot at this, So the next time I go back, we play Live Speed, play a couple more songs, and now I go home, and now they start talking about touring, that they have a tour of South America booked, and would I be available, and this and that. So now I realize I got to get this discharge straightened out with the Marines. So I go home, and I was waiting on a discharge when I left the Marines. I wasn't in the I wasn't with my company anymore. I was in a holding platoon where you wait as you're being processed out. And so I call up, and the guy says, yeah, I'll call you back. And 15 minutes later, the cops come to my door, arrest me. And I spent the night in jail at the local precinct, and then the next morning a bounty hunter picked me up and took me to Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn. And I spent the afternoon there, and then 2 Marines picked me up, drove me to the Naval Brig in Philadelphia. I spent 2 or 3 days there, and then 2 Marines picked me up and took me down to Quantico, Virginia. So I get to Quantico, and I get to the movement center and get signed in and everything, and they put us in the holding area. And I'm there my first evening, and the phone corporal comes out and goes, Ward, you got a phone call. So I'm thinking it's my parents. I'm like, my mother's going to be bawling, So I pick up the phone. And, Chris. I go, yeah. It's Johnny Ramone. I go, hey, Johnny. I go, I'm sorry. I should have told you guys. I said I thought I could get it worked out. He was like, well, what are they saying? I was like, I'm going to be here for, a month to 2 months, but I'm going to get discharged. And that's it. I'll be done. He said, well, just do your time. Don't get in any trouble. When you get out, you got a job. And I almost fell. I was like, holy shit. So here I am in jail finding out that I'm going to be playing with the Ramones, So I was like, they shaved my head again. He was like, don't worry, we'll get you a Beatles wig,
When CJ came in as bass player, it gave them a new injection, really, of youth. It made them all wake up a bit. I think they've probably become a bit set in their ways. And he was young and up for it, and it woke everybody up and gave them a kick up the arse, I think. There was always something wrong with Joey, and I think I was kept away from a lot of it, really. He couldn't walk into a lift without going in, coming out, going out. He had OCD or something like. There was this example in Spain when he didn't know when to cross the road. He kept walking off the curb, walking back on, walking off. In the end, a car hit him. But he was struggling against himself to do something. You knew there was something wrong, but I never really knew what it was. There was definitely a problem.
The OCD didn't affect his creative abilities at all. It didn't affect his performance at all, or anything like that. It basically was a handicap as far as everything else was concerned. Daily routines and people have to do repetitive things. It affects their lives quite a lot. But fortunately, as far as I know, it didn't affect his performance or any of the creative endeavors that he was involved in.
Me personally, what made it easy for me to put up with it or tolerate it, I didn't even have to put up with it. I accepted it. I think that is the word. When he lived here, for a while, for instance, I did try to make him do things like more or less normal, to clean after himself, to be orderly. And but I was never like a disciplinarian style, type. I never was. So I never had any real problem with it. I think I ended up accepting it more than trying to correct it. But accepting it became a good way of correcting it. And but I don't think Joey had any problem with it.
The Ramones were what made the Ramones great was their sort of basic eccentricities and uniqueness combined with unfortunate emotional distress they might have brought with them and everything. And so they came with problems, and these problems helped them come up with the great songs. And the songs are mostly biographical or based on true events to a large extent. And so they led very emotionally charged lives, and some so had hard lives, and certainly fueled their creative abilities and the songs and their performances.
Got their poster at home, the farewell tour, the Ramones in Ramstein. They told me that was it. They're going to come and do it. And I thought, fair play. I tried to persuade them that we could go out 2 weeks every year, like reform, just specifically to do something that was worthwhile. And they said, no, we don't want to know. We're going to just call it a day, put it to bed, that's it. Because I thought they were joking to an extent. I thought they're bound to want some money next year. And then I'd phone up with other offers and nothing would ever happen. Nobody would ever return the call. So it all kind of just dribbled away, really.
But between the record and doing Lollapalooza, it was just not a very good way of going out. For us to do our last tour on, being, outshined by all these huge platinum seller bands and playing in the middle of nowhere because Metallica's tour a couple months after that was ending. We couldn't go to any major markets because they were going to be coming through in a couple of months, so we got stuck playing out in the middle of nowhere. And it was just, I guess because I was a fan, I felt that they were in a lot of ways disrespecting themselves by making that their retirement tour. I mean, in retrospect, it was good because I think they finally grasped on that tour how much of an influence they really had on the biggest bands of that time period. On the biggest bands of the 90s. Everybody, Soundgarden, Metallica, Rancid, they all came around and thanked Johnny and Joey and told them what big fans they were. So, for that it was good that they got to, but there should have been a proper retirement tour with just the Ramones, or they should have got somebody else to come out with us, and we could have done the shows that we always did in the same places that we always did, and finish up with 7 nights at CBGB's or something like that, a proper Ramones tour. But instead we did our last show in LA with Eddie Vedder, the guys from Soundgarden, Lemmy, all these big stars coming up on stage, and and they were thinking about, well, it'll help us sell more videos, blah, 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 and this and that. And at that point, I mean, everything was just strictly about, making the last couple of dollars that they possibly could. And I was thinking more of, what's going to be the best thing for the fans. What are the fans going to like the most? You know what I mean? And like I said, I thought 7 nights at CBGB's would have been perfect. You know what I mean? 7 sold out nights. But it just didn't go that way.
I mean, my joke is, now I tell, is if the Ramones were this big this big when I was working for them as they are now, after they retired in '96, I would have gotten a raise.
I'm proud to have been part of it. I mean, I think it was fantastic to have been involved with one of the best bands ever and to have known them personally as individuals, to like them, hung around with them, gone to dinner with them, talked to them and known them. I'm proud to have done that. I don't look upon that as a job. I look upon it as I'm grateful that I was there, really.
They were trying to do something that would bring rock and roll back to its roots. And they redefined completely, not only the music, but yes, the style of the kind of people, the character, the personalities, of what it took, of what was real, of what a rock and roll star should be, a rock and roll musician. You know, if you happen to be a star, well, that's something else. But they totally rewrote the book, not only on the music, but on the personalities, yes.